High altitude training effects from breathing exercises. My high school was 5,600 feet above sea level. Although it was a small school, our wrestling team usually dominated the much larger schools. When teams from other schools would come up the mountain to compete against us, most of our opponents would run out of breath and struggle to keep up because they weren't used to the thinner air. When I wrestled at schools that were closer to sea level, I felt like I had so much energy and endurance. Training at high elevation boosted our red blood cell count so we had more oxygen carrying hemoglobin to supply our muscles, which increased our cardio fitness, VO2 max, and endurance. We would often win because the other team was too tired to keep up. What gave us the advantage over other schools is known as high altitude training, though most people who do high altitude training train at much higher elevations, and some endurance athletes even train at elevations higher than 8,000 feet. Because the air is thinner at higher altitudes and it is harder for the body to deliver oxygen to the cells than it is at sea level, the body makes more red blood cells to keep up with the metabolic demands. Many Olympic training centers are located at high elevation to give athletes an advantage. Lance Armstrong is known as one of the greatest cyclists ever, and he is the only person to have won the Tour de France 7 times. However, he was stripped of all his victories after being accused of blood doping. Blood doping involves artificially increasing the number of red blood cells in the bloodstream to boost athletic performance, and some of the methods used can be very dangerous. Most sports have deemed blood doping illegal. Whether we are training at high altitude or blood doping, having more oxygen-carrying red blood cells increases our athletic performance. As discussed earlier, the body works off demand. Whatever the body needs, it generates more of. If there is an excess or a lack of need, the body makes less. Chronic overbreathing results in fewer red blood cells, but underbreathing produces more. Breathing less, particularly long breath holds and breath retention while performing strenuous activities, can simulate high-altitude training and has the same physiological effect. Creating an oxygen deficit environment and increasing carbon dioxide prompts the body to make more red blood cells to meet our needs, which results in increased cardiorespiratory fitness and endurance levels. Have you ever been running and felt a second wind, a boost of energy and endurance? The spleen filters the blood, recycling old red blood cells, and it holds a significant reserve of red blood cells in case of a sudden drop in blood pressure or inadequate circulation. If we are engaged in strenuous activity, the spleen contracts and releases a large number of red blood cells into our system, resulting in that second wind. Breath retention exercises can also be used to stimulate splenic contraction. When we do multiple rounds of long breath holds, the spleen releases more and more red blood cells into circulation, which is why holding the breath usually gets easier the more rounds we do. We can also get this extra boost of red blood cells before doing an activity for which we are going to want extra endurance by practicing several rounds of breath retention first so that we don't have to wait for the second wind. Breathing less also decreases pain perception, improves mood, stabilizes emotions, brings about deep states of relaxation, and helps us feel more at peace.